lead editor David Burtett.
So I finally got my Steam Deck.
Hey.
Oh,
It's I should have brought it down and showed it to the screen and everything. It's really cool. Way bigger than a Switch. Did not like it. That thing's a monster. Somehow, like I've got smaller hands. Somehow that thing is very comfortable to grip. Wasn't completely expecting, which the same thing happened with the Switch. Wasn't expecting it to feel as comfortable in the hands as it did. Still did. This is it's just like, man, the ergonomics of this are really nice. The games so far are playing really well on it from what I understand. Obviously, there's a lot that's not verified yet for the Steam Deck, but there's plenty that's sitting in the unknown category of there's a good chance this work. You're just taking a chance that some features may not be as crisp. I played a little bit of Batman Arkham Origins, which is unknown, worked perfectly. So it's really cool that there's plenty of stuff that works on this. And Wario64 needs to really stop posting deals for Steam games and mentioning that they are deck verified, because I only have so much money right now. I just bought a Steam Deck. I don't need to keep putting more games in my library that I'm not going to play. On that note, Rise Son of Rome is $250, and I'm very tempted because it's Steam Deck verified.
Okay. I understand that temptation. Editor Noah Altsaldua.
So yesterday I watched Moon Knight with my girlfriend, and like it was just on a whim because we watched the Marvel shows. We didn't watch Loki, but we've seen everything else. And from that first episode, I can tell you this is going to be the best technically like made Marvel TV show so far, and probably the best technically made like media since for a while, I guess, because it starts off with like, you know, I don't know, it tells the story without expositing too much, and it really gets you in, but it doesn't give you so much that you're just like, oh man, when is this going to stop? The action scenes are really well like choreographed and made, and the edits are great. I love that, and I love the show so far, and I think like technically speaking, it's going to be the best like shot and edited piece of Marvel media we've seen in a while. So super excited.
How many episodes have aired so far?
Only one, and it's going to be 6 in total. And the episodes are more like prestige television, so they're closer to like an hour long.
What's really funny is it's actually the lowest critically rated Marvel show.
Yeah, I heard that, and that makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't get it.
All right, my name is Anthony Shelton, writer and YouTube content creator, and whoever at Dyson came up with the idea with making a air filtering headset or a set of headphones, noise canceling, by the way, I don't know how to view that person, those people. That is such a strange idea. I don't know if you've seen the thing, but it's got this mask that goes over it, and then noise canceling headphones. And one of the things that they want to do, obviously, air filtration, you know, they want to cancel out the air pollution, but one of the things that they wanted to do also is cancel out noise pollution, indoors and outdoors. And the first thing I think about is anybody who's trying to cancel out outdoor noise pollution is only putting themselves in a better position to get killed. Like that's what you're doing. You're missing sirens. You're missing emergency situations. If you're walking across the street and you're over here trying to, you know, if something's going wrong, you're over here just with your noise canceling headphones. Like anybody who wears any kind of noise canceling headphones outside in the outdoors, just walking through the city, like I don't get you. Like I don't. I can understand maybe if you're jogging around your neighborhood, maybe a little bit, but I need to hear things because I need to know what's going on. And I need to know, hey, is there somebody coming up behind me? They gonna rob me? Are they gonna pickpocket me? Like you don't know if these things are happening with noise canceling headphones. So like, why would you do that? It's a weird idea. I like the intent, but who's gonna buy this? I don't even remember how much Dyson vacuum cleaners are anyway. So this just seems like a weird idea to get into. if we end up having the opportunity to review that, I would be really fascinated to see like how that goes. And then how do you rate? I know I keep going, but how? This is such a weird thing. How do you rate the air filtration? Like, how do you do that?
I breathed it real good.
Right. You walk into a room full of natural gas, and you're like, yeah, I don't feel like I'm breathing this in. Like a room full of dust. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you rate this? I don't know. It's such a weird thing. Let's get into our icebreaker segment. David, what is a weird food you have tried?
So, I've tried a lot of different random things. I'm more of a plain person when it comes to most of my food. But when I was on a cruise, we tried to try a lot of different things because on a cruise, A, I don't have to pay for it because I already paid for everything. B, it's fun to have him bring a bunch of appetizers to the table and we just share them all around. So probably the oddest thing, at least that I can think of off the top of my head, we had braised ox tongue come to the table. And surprisingly, besides knowing what it was, it didn't actually taste that bad. Tasted kind of like the easiest thing to say is like brisket. It's probably my easiest comparison for braised ox tongue. Knowing what it was the only reason it felt kind of gross. But yeah, maybe just a little bit of texture. It was kind of odd, but yeah, brisket with some brown gravy on top of it.
That's fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you eat all of it? Actually, no, don't answer that.
A decent bit.
Okay. Well, then I imagine you didn't go for seconds.
No.
No. Okay. It wasn't that good. All right.
No. And we were trying a bunch of things, so that was more the idea behind all of it.
Fair enough.
I still tried it though.
You did. I wouldn't have tried it. I'll go this time. The weirdest food I've tried, and I know a lot of people love it, but I don't understand them. Boba is the weirdest thing I've tried. I hate boba. And it's not the actual drink. It's the balls. I don't like those, especially as I'm sipping on it, and it's like and then it's like this slimy, squishy texture. Oh, it's just it doesn't necessarily taste bad, but the texture is awful. Oh my gosh. I cannot do it. It's the worst. And no shade to all of you who do love boba, but I can't do it. I cannot. It's just thinking about it, like swirling in my mouth. It's just
boba is so good. Boba is so good. One thing that
the drink is fine.
Yeah, but you don't
that's
have the full
matcha
experience if you don't have the boba. One thing that I do not like is it's like Vietnamese cuisine, like Southeast Asian cuisine. I think it's like Filipino too. But it's called balut, and it's a fertilized. Wow. It's like a fertilized duck egg usually, and that means that like that bird, that embryo is like developed in there. So you're like looking down at it. I could not do it. Like I could not do it.
You almost tried it.
I know. I tried it. I tried it, and I was like, no. I was young, so I like had to. There's like the parents like saying, "Oh, you gotta try this. You gotta take a bite." And I was like, okay. Because my stepmom's Vietnamese, and like half my family's Vietnamese, so I love Vietnamese food. But I draw the line at balut. I can't do balut. I love like bun sao and like I love like Saigon pancakes and I love like pho and all that. But I cannot do balut. I cannot.
Are you aware of this phenomena, David?
I was not, and I don't care to be at this point either.
Oh man, the first time I saw it, my wife was like, "Have you seen this before?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "People actually do this?" I'm like, "Woo!" What's like the egg cracking, and you basically like eat a raw egg. You crack it and just like eat it, like let the yolk and juices flow into your mouth, but the bird's still in there. Like some have little feathers and stuff. And I'm like, oh no,
that's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm like, nah, I'm an American, and that just doesn't vibe with me. I am 100% American. I will say the weirdest. I just want to throw this in there. The weirdest named food I've seen. I didn't see this until I went to Japan, and I guess it's a thing. It's called egg slut, and I was like, what the frick? Like, why is this thing called egg slut? I don't remember what it is, but it is the name is certainly memorable. So
no joke.
Google egg slut, and it's a food people eat. It's some sort of egg dish. I don't know why it's called egg slut though. Took a picture of it, thinking it was some Japanese thing. No.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. It's like this restaurant, right? It's a restaurant?
No, it's a food. It's a dish.
Okay.
Yeah, it's some sort of dish. And I don't remember what it looked like, but I took a picture of the name and I thought it was a Japanese exclusive thing. No, it is not. It is not at all. So Google it. Figure out what it is. Egg slut. Spelled like it sounds.
Yep.
All right, let's get into our trending news. Sony has announced their new PlayStation Plus subscription, and there are a lot of details to go over before we get into this. So I'm going to go over the details, and then we're going to have our reaction to it. So it is still called PlayStation Plus. They did not change the name of it at all, but they did add 3 tiers to the Now subscription service. The first tier is called PlayStation Plus Essential. It is PlayStation Plus as we know it right now. The next tier is PlayStation Plus Extra, and that is everything included in PlayStation Plus Essential, plus around 400 games from PS4 and PlayStation 5 that can be downloaded, and it includes first and third-party games. That'll cost $15 a month, $40 quarterly, or $100 a year. And then there's PlayStation Plus Premium, the final tier. That includes everything from the previous 2 tiers. And then it adds retro games, which is about 340 titles, ranging from the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and PSP era. Those can be streamed and downloaded on the PC, the PS4, and the PS5, but the PS3 games can only be streamed. Those cannot be downloaded. There are also some time-limited trials that will be available if you are subscribed to Premium, and that all of it costs $18 a month, $50 quarterly, or $120 a year. Noah, what is your first reaction to this?
My first reaction was just like, I knew it was coming this week, and my first reaction was just, yeah, that's about what I thought it would be. It's not like it was kind of like whelmed. I wasn't like overwhelmed. I wasn't like, this is really bad. It was just like, yeah, that's what Sony would do. I guess the other thing is just like, those prices are a little bit higher than I thought they would be. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the prices, especially.
Well, just to compare, just to throw this out there, Game Pass, PC or console, costs $10 a month. There is no yearly option for any of Game Pass, anything at this point. Ultimate costs $15 a month and includes access to what is available on PC and what is available on console. Both can be downloaded and streamed. Again, neither have yearly plans, so Ultimate ends up costing $180 a year, and then $120 if you're either invested in console or PC. I think most of us know what comes with Game Pass at this point. Obviously, the big one being day one games, but the price difference is there. PlayStation Plus Premium, $18 a month, and then $120 a year. So I think Sony is definitely trying to not goad, but try to coerce people to buy the yearly subscription instead of going with the $18 a month. David, what was your first reaction?
I think it's fine for what they're wanting to do. Like, like Noah said, I don't know that necessarily I was like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing ever. But I do think it's just fine. It's already in a more solid spot than people have completely forgotten that the original Game Pass was trash at launch.
Yeah.
It was not good. There was no good games on it. It took them announcing the day one games for it to even become worth it. It was that bad. So Sony's already got a leg up in having a better service to present at the beginning. So I think it's just fine. There's a good chance I'll at least give it a try, even though I don't use a lot of my subscriptions for anything.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I felt it was good. I felt it was fine. I feel like it's something I would want to subscribe to if I had the money. I don't get the people. My first reaction was I really don't get the people who were thinking this would compete with Game Pass from the beginning. Yeah. The idea when the idea of a subscription from Sony was imminent, potential, whatever, I was like, cool, it's not going to compete with Game Pass. Like, I don't think that's the direction Sony's trying to go with it.
No.
So the fact that people look at this and go, yeah, this thing is just like Game Pass, or this thing is trying to compete with Game Pass and it's really underwhelming. I'm like, no, it's not trying to compete with Game Pass. If Sony were really trying to compete with Game Pass, this is not what they would come with.
No.
Because if you look at everything that they're offering, everything is about, hey, PlayStation fans, come enjoy more PlayStation stuff.
Yep.
If you look at what Microsoft is trying to do with Game Pass, they're looking at, hey, gaming people, everybody, look at what we got. You want this. Like, Microsoft is trying to bring PlayStation fans over. Microsoft is trying to bring Nintendo fans over into Game Pass. Sony's just like, we're just focused on our folk.
Yep.
They say 48 million people are subscribed to PlayStation Plus. So they're looking at it like there are still some people who do not have PlayStation Plus. Perhaps this will be the thing that will entice them to get into it. Personally, for me, I am not subscribed to PlayStation Plus right now. Not because I'm just not using my PlayStation 4 because it's too slow. I'm spoiled by next gen. So if I had PlayStation Plus Premium, I would absolutely hook up my PlayStation 4 so I could play retro games because I've missed out on all first 3 generations of PlayStation. Like, I am that person. I'm like, I would absolutely take advantage of this because that's what I want. And that's the type of people Sony is trying to hit. More people interested in PlayStation, buying into more PlayStation stuff. This is not supposed to compete with Game Pass at all in any way. This is meant to get PlayStation people to spend more money. That's it.
So, yeah.
I was just going to say, including what you're talking about with the 48 million people that are subscribed for, they're looking to get more out of that dollar. There's a lot of really hardcore PlayStation fans who are like, okay, I would totally spend more to get a PS4 and a PS5 library of games. They're not to mention, once again, the cost of it. When you look at it in the annual portion, it's not that bad at all. It's actually less than Game Pass. The only way it really gets you is when you get onto the monthly thing. They're giving you options to save money. And it's really like, if you look at it, that's the combination of the price. The highest tier is the same combination of price as what PlayStation Now and PlayStation Plus was. So 60/60, you're already there. So if you already subscribe to Plus and subscribe to Now, you're already at that yearly rate. So you might as well go ahead. It's not costing you more to jump in on it. Noah, what were you bringing up?
I was going to say, yeah, like with what they're offering, they don't seem to be wanting to compete with Game Pass. But also, they wouldn't have created these 3 tiers of PlayStation Plus in a world without Xbox Game Pass. And I think that's important to note because they wouldn't have done this. They wouldn't have like revolutionized this and like changed the way they view PlayStation Plus And I feel like you have to compare it in a few ways, like with what they're trying to do with in terms of like backwards compatibility and making that the premium tier. Um, with PS1 and PS2 and PSP games and PS3 games also being able to stream, it's like you can see that they're trying to go. They are trying to like follow in Xbox's footsteps with how backwards compatible friendly they've become, and I do feel like in that way they are trying to do backwards compatibility. But I feel like that specifically is a letdown to me, especially with it being the most expensive tier. Like they're trying to commit to it, but they're also not committing hard enough to bring the PS3 onto the PS5 system. Like just natively being able to download it and play it on that, like using the power of the PS5. And for like a few reasons, I feel like they're letting the people that would even care about playing PS3 games on the PS5 down a little bit by not going the full way and like making that work. Because if I'm a PlayStation fan and I want to play more PlayStation games, that's like one of the things that I've been waiting for. Like I want to play Metal Gear Solid 4 without having to go hunt down the specific like Legacy HD collection or like things like that. And that is like one thing I would like, but you can also make the argument that like they've done a great job of porting PS3 games over, like remastering them, which they have, but there are still like a number of titles that are left out of that.
Yeah, the only thing with that though is the cell processor really screwed PlayStation over in general. So the architecture for native is not even close to as like for Xbox. I'm not saying it's easy, but a lot less money is going into making those games backwards compatible because the architecture behind the systems works so similarly. It's a lot simpler for Microsoft. Microsoft's a software company at heart. So for them, it's a lot easier to invest smaller amount of money into something like that and make it something. Whereas with PlayStation, they're not a software company at heart. They've done stuff with it. They would have to probably outward consult with different companies. There's a lot of licensing costs with a lot of things that they would have to figure out. The cell processor, once again, making something run, it's like it's like sticking a bagel in my coffee maker and hoping it comes out toasted. So I feel like it's very easy for us to look at PlayStation and say, why aren't you doing this? When PlayStation can look over the numbers, the reports and whatnot and say, okay, and they've done this in the past, so I'm not going to give them a pass on it. But they look at those numbers and they see that not that many people, we talk a big game when it comes to retro games, but it's not a backbone of almost any system. New games are why people buy new systems. So it makes sense that I'm not going to put millions of dollars in my already limited amount of money. Sony isn't Microsoft, where Microsoft can take a bunch of losses everywhere because they're obviously losing money on Game Pass. There's no way that you can have me spend $15 and give me all these games and all this and not lose money. PlayStation doesn't have that money. So it makes sense that they cannot just go and say, okay, we're just going to make PlayStation 3 games run natively. Maybe it's easier than I think it is, but I don't think it's that easy. And that's why it's streaming. I feel like if they wanted to do it, they would do it. It's being held back by money and by a unfortunate decision in the design of the PlayStation 3, which I hate. Trust me. The Resistance games are stuck on PS3, and I hate that.
So I disagree with the idea that because Sony came up with this, that it automatically is competing with Game Pass. I do agree with the fact that
inspired.
I don't think I'm saying that. I think I'm saying that this idea would not exist without Game Pass, and they're not executing what their vision seems to be. I don't think they're executing it well with that PlayStation 3 thing. And if it's too much trouble to do the PS3 thing, then transparency on that would be cool.
Well, I do agree with the fact that I'm not entirely sure they would do this without the inspiration of Game Pass, but as a publicly traded company, you're always looking for ways to earn more money. Like that's your job. So,
yep.
and PlayStation is the backbone of Sony right now. So to pass up on an opportunity to broaden your subscription service and, in one way make it more expensive, or, maybe in another way to give more value to, increase that dollar. Yeah, you're going to take that opportunity. And Sony's like, yo, people are doing subscriptions. Nintendo's doing the expansion pack. People are buying into Game Pass. It'd probably be smart to do a subscription service. The writing was just on the wall for Sony. If it wasn't this, it was going to be something else. They're even getting into live service. Like and they're making 10 live service games. Sony is at the point where they have to play ball with everybody else because their traditional model, which has worked for so long, is not enough. That still works, and it will continue to work because their games are banging and their consoles are fantastic. But that's not going to be enough anymore. So as much as it is a subscription service, it's more akin to what Nintendo is doing with the expansion pack, except a million times better, because the online is better and the service is obviously better from top to bottom. But unless Sony starts doing day one games, unless Sony also starts adding new games frequently, not just 2 for PlayStation Plus Essential, which is another aspect of Game Pass that I think is more noticeable, the constant rotating of games, very much like Netflix. These games are static. So at least as it's presented, this is pretty static. So you can pay
usually, but they are very transparent when they come in when they're going.
Yeah. Well, I'm just talking about what's going on with the PlayStation Plus subscription.
With PlayStation, with Now, should I say, what they did with Now. There were some games that would pop up and it'd be like, this is available for 6 months.
Yeah. So for the most part, most of these are going to be pretty static. So you're paying $120 a year if you're in premium, or $100 a year, whatever you decide to purchase. Like, you have to justify yourself either per month, quarterly, per year. There aren't many new titles I can play. So is what is there like satisfying per month, quarterly, or per year, which I think is an interesting money thing people will have to figure out. Whereas Game Pass is like, I know there's going to be new games every month, whether they're day one or just third-party new games that have already been released that I haven't been able to play. I know there's going to be new games, so every month I might be able to justify that $15 because I know I'm going to get some new stuff.
Yep.
So it's a different financial thing. So with that said, Noah, do you think this is too expensive?
Well, I mean, I think y'all bring up great points about the yearly model being actually pretty affordable. And cheaper, yes. But I am not a fan of being locked into buying a yearly model just to get the cheapest price, especially when, like, okay, I could buy the yearly model now, but, like, what if somewhere down the line I don't even want the service anymore? I'm not going to play any of the games. I realize that it's not really what I wanted. Because I'm not the one reading articles about what the games are coming to this thing, and I'm just like, I'll pick it up. I don't see that being like a great proposition to people who do buy that and like end up going down the line and being like, I didn't really want this. But I suppose that if you're buying the yearly, you're probably locked into PlayStation anyways, so that's not like that big of a deal. The monthly prices I'm not really a fan of. I don't think $15 a month is a great offer for PlayStation Plus Extra, especially because I am going to compare it directly to Xbox Game Pass for console or PC, because it's just better in terms of like what you get. Maybe not in terms of the quality of each game, but in terms of the quantity for sure. And the fact that you can choose, I want to play this on my console, or I want to play this on my PC. I think that's like a great. Like the $10 mark is a great like baseline, I think, for that. Also, like with Game Pass Ultimate, you don't just get all the other stuff. You get like Xbox Live, which you don't get with Game Pass. So that's different. because in PlayStation Plus Extra, you're obviously getting Xbox Live, PlayStation Plus.
I was like, you do get Xbox Live.
Not with regular Game Pass.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you can't compare it directly, like I'm doing, which is, I'm just trying to say, I still don't know if I like the $14.99. If you're going to go for the weird $18 a month, maybe you could go for like a $12.99 price point, and that would make it even a little bit better. Just in terms of like their pricing points. But I don't think it's like awful. I just don't see myself getting really enthused about either of these price points.
Well, and here's the thing, I guess, with it being too expensive, so to speak, we only know a couple games that are going to be on the service right now. There's a 740 game list of what's coming. So obviously we can guess some of it based on what's on PlayStation now right at this moment. Probably a decent amount of those games that will make their way over is at least my guess. But we also know that Returnal, which is a game that has been out only a year, is going to be on there. Both Spider-Man games are going to be on there. Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales, which are phenomenal titles. The original God of War we know is coming over. That's a large amount of it. They've also made it sound like they believe every publisher is going to be involved with getting games onto this service. So the question is going to be, they've already started trying to get some stuff because they got one of the Grand Theft Auto trilogy games was actually on PlayStation Now within a month of the service or of it coming out. They had Shadow Warrior 3 that actually hit day one. So they already tested some stuff day one. They had Crisis Remastered that was thrown on there with the last run. PlayStation Now just doesn't advertise at all. It shows in the fact that I think they had like 3-something million subscribers. They're wanting this thing to be part of the big reason that they're putting all this stuff together is they are inspired somewhat by Game Pass, but they want this service to be able to grab the people who are in Plus and get them to spend more every month. So it's hard for me to compare. It's not going to be the value of Game Pass. It's not. We look at $15 and then we get day one releases, which let's all remember that the only day one that this year we have yet to get a day one Xbox release. So we haven't gotten Xbox's first one. Redfall's supposedly summer, and Starfield, as long as it doesn't get delayed, is November. That's the only two games we are, so to speak, promised from Xbox first party right now. We don't know what games are coming from PlayStation, so it makes it really hard for me to judge a game list based on a couple of the games they're putting on. Because, what if they swing for the fences and add Elden Ring to it in June? I doubt it. But what if they did? Suddenly that value proposition jumps up tremendously. So I just don't think it's hard to judge value when you don't know what you're getting. And that's just my thing. They could do 10 hour. They could do like EA Play, 10-hour trial of God of War Ragnarok the week before it comes out. Progress continues over if you buy it. There are ways that they can construct this to make sure you're getting the value, even if you're not getting the same value. And that's their different visions between both of them.
The value, this is all geared towards PlayStation people. This isn't necessarily trying to bring Nintendo people over and Microsoft people over. So $15 a month, like if they were to put Elden Ring on there, yeah, people might be interested in just upgrading to PlayStation Extra. Or Plus Extra, so that way, they can play Elden Ring, whatever.
And I do think Extra is going to be the one everybody goes for, unless they have some real killer old PS games.
I think Extra is the worst setup there because for $100 a year, you get PS4 and PS5 games. That's cool. $20 more, you can get everything else.
Oh yeah.
$15 a month for Extra. Like, if you already are subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate, which is entirely possible, do you just go that route, or do you just pay for the $120 a year for premium? Like, I think premium at $120 literally undercuts every other price point below it, except for PlayStation Plus Essential, because 48 million people already do that. I think Extra is literally the worst tier. $18 a month for premium is god awful. $50 quarterly is awful. $40 quarterly for Extra is awful. None of these make sense when
the
premium,
yearly makes way more sense.
Right, but it makes more sense for premium at $120 because it's just that much closer. I feel like Sony is trying to convince people like, hey, like premium, this is where that's where I'm certainly convinced at that point, because yeah, you might be into just, PS4 and PS5. Are you willing to pay $100 a year for that? Like, I don't know. Like, these games have already been released. Your PlayStation 5 games aren't going to be day one. So if you're subscribed to the $100 a year for that, you're still going to have to shell out $60 or, whatever. Sales, you can wait for that too, of course. But, we're talking at the top tier. You're shelling out still more money for that. So that just doesn't sound nearly as good. So that's the way I'm thinking about it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like premium is literally the way you should go. And the only way you should go is just $120 a year, or just stick with PlayStation Plus Essential, because you're still going to get the 2 free games. And those are generally very good. Like, those blow, games with gold out the water.
Games with gold doesn't exist at this point.
And it's been that way since PlayStation Plus has existed. So it's either you go stick with PlayStation Plus Essential, or you just get premium and just pay the extra $20 for the year. Mind you, there's always Black Friday sale deals, to get PlayStation Plus. Like, I imagine that's still going to continue in some form or fashion, which is going to make premium even more enticing for the price. It just doesn't make any sense to do anything else with the way the pricing is set up. If Extra was $80 a year, that makes a lot more sense. $12 a month, $35 quarterly, something around there, and $80 a year. That makes a lot more sense in comparison to premium. But when premium is literally $3 off, $10 off, and $20 off, it just doesn't make any sense to go with anything else, regardless of what is offered. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I did want to say, with the PlayStation 3 streaming, remember, Sony and Microsoft did strike a deal with Sony using I believe the Microsoft's Azure cloud services stuff. This might fall into that. And I've played cloud streaming on Game Pass, and it works pretty well, at least on actual PC and the Series X. Works pretty well. I haven't had any problems with it. And with the type of games PlayStation tends to have, mostly, there are some fighting games and stuff, but there are a lot of RPGs, a lot of, platforming type of stuff, not super heavy input-based type of games. I think it's entirely possible PlayStation 3 streaming might be okay. Yep. Like, I actually, if Sony is using Microsoft's Azure cloud services. So knowing that, I'm actually okay with PlayStation 3 being streamed until they can figure out some solution where you can download it. But I think it might be fine. I'm okay with being wrong with that, but I think it could be okay. Should Sony... Oh, go ahead, Noah.
Do you know when that deal went through, and if they're implementing it with PlayStation Now already? Or
that was a while ago.
Yeah, it was sometime last year, or maybe even the year before, but late the year before or sometime last year. But again, I don't know if that's why Sony teamed up with Microsoft in that regard.
Yeah.
Was it for PlayStation Now? I don't know. Like, they didn't announce their intention. It was just a big deal. It's like, oh my gosh, Sony's doing something with Microsoft. Like,
I think if they announced like something like that, then like that they were for sure like improving their infrastructure and PS Now like streaming capabilities, like to make the change to premium, like PlayStation Plus Premium. That would be a great way to get people back who have been burned by PlayStation Now streaming. Because from what I've heard about PS Now streaming, it's not really that great. Even when you're playing games that are like low, like that don't require like online play. I haven't heard great things
about it either, but I've heard it's gotten better. But
I was just gonna say, Stadia plug here. That's the best service by far. Nothing runs as clean as Stadia's cloud stuff.
I would agree. At least what I experienced in the beta. But for what I've also played of Game Pass, the cloud streaming, I had no problem playing games on it. So if that was the intention, I don't know. They didn't say. So I imagine if they're getting into Microsoft's Azure cloud services, they are trying to buff their cloud services that they offer. So if that's cloud saves, if that's PlayStation Now, if that is whatever else that they have planned, I think across the board, anything cloud is going to be better at this point. It might not even be for PlayStation. Who knows? But like whatever cloud stuff they're using, I think it's just going to be better. Should Sony put day one exclusives on it? David?
They don't
on
have
PlayStation
to.
Plus.
Honestly, they don't have to. I don't think they have to. That's not their aim. They're not. If you go on a Microsoft platform, they want you to subscribe to that service. That is literally Microsoft's end all be all, is that you play Game Pass. That's not PlayStation's end all be all. They just want to present a good service. That's their vision, and they want to sell video games. So Sony has no reason at this point to do it. Now, what's funny is if you read into what Jim Ryan said about everything, he doesn't say it'll never happen. So he's kind of leaving himself an out of it could happen, and the way that he says something, he doesn't necessarily just cut everything off for it. But PlayStation doesn't need to, and although I could see some of the games starting to hit quicker, because we are seeing Returnal hit it, and Returnal will just be maybe a month or so over a year old by the time it arrives on this new PlayStation service. So maybe PlayStation looks into bringing, after the first year or so, start to bring these over, kind of like what they're doing with PC, because they're obviously adjusting their PC strategy as well. So I don't think they have to. They're going to look to sell these titles, but I could see them start to bring things over a little quicker, as well as utilize these trials to a degree, bring them over to the service to get people. I mean, heck, you play the first 3 hours of God of War, you're hooked, and you go and buy it digitally. It's a really good way to do it, and to get people just grabbing a hold of it.
Yeah, I would say like maybe you don't need to do guaranteed day one releases on all first party IP. But it would be cool if they like every once in a while said, yeah, this game will be day one. But this isn't like this isn't going to be an every time thing, but we're going to do it with this game. And I think that would be a great way for them to get exposure on games that they know aren't going to do as well as like a Horizon Forbidden West or a God of War Ragnarok. Business wise, like on their perspective. But also I think, one of the reasons that they're not expected to put all their games day and date on the service is because PlayStation games have a sort of prestige around them in terms of what they deliver in the single player experience and how good it is compared to anything else on the market that you could probably pick up. Which is why we say, yeah, they don't need to. But I do feel like once we get to a world, which I think is pretty close, where Xbox has the same like sort of appeal, like where we can look at these like a generation of Xbox games and be like, yeah, these were all really solid. They know how to make they've carved their niche out, and the Bethesda games are really great, and the like the Arcane Studio games are really great, and we can say, yeah, they know what they're doing. they're worth the money every time. I don't think that we're going to get to a point where we're like, yeah, Xbox should roll back on the day and date stuff with all their games just because they're really good now and they don't need to. Like from a consumer perspective, I feel like in the ideal consumer world, yeah, they should put their games day and date on these services because in the end they are charging people for it, and it's like a yearly commitment if you want the best price. And I think especially at the highest price, you should maybe be entitled to that. As a consumer, if I'm looking at Game Pass Ultimate, I am thinking that at this point, like at this point in 2022, I'm looking at this and I'm being like, oh man, why do I have to like pay for the service if I don't get these games day and day? That kind of sucks. But yeah, keeping in mind all the stuff that y'all are saying about, or about like basically what everyone's saying about like the prestige of gaming, of PlayStation gaming, you don't really need to do that. Just from a consumer perspective, I think it would be nice.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, PlayStation's already put out 2 bangers this year in what they've already got, and Xbox has yet to release a game this year. So Xbox really doesn't have anything more on their service right now than PlayStation has on now. If you look at it in a technical way, that way right now.
Hey, I got 2 day one.
I'm not being that guy. Just saying is you are kind of waiting on something, and with PlayStation, it's also the thought of I have to. If I put it on there, I can't go back. If it destroys my business to put all these day one releases on there, there's no way I can roll that back without a lot of hurt. Xbox has Microsoft behind them with millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. We say it all the time. They can lose a bunch of money and do whatever the heck they want with all of this. PlayStation can't. They're literally the backbone of the business, and when you're making all that money on these premier exclusives, and you're trusted that way, because we're still at that point with Xbox. We still want to see. We still waiting to see, the consistency on their exclusive releases, on the quality of those exclusive releases. So PlayStation, we got that, so we're paying for it.
I think Jim Ryan actually did pretty much say it's not going to happen. And I'll read the quote. This is from gamesindustry.biz. They did an interview with him after the announcement of this. In terms of putting our games into this service or any of our services upon their release, as you well know, this is not a road that we've gone down in the past, and it's not a road that we're going to go down with this new service. We feel if we were to do that with the games that we make at PlayStation Studios, that virtuous cycle will be broken. The virtuous cycle, meaning, releasing a good console and having great games on that good console. The level of investment that we need to make in our studios would not be possible, and we think the knock-on effect on the quality of the games that we make would not be something that gamers want. I think there's a little fluffy language in there for basically trying to say we like the hype that our games generate and people buy into that hype, but Sony is still relying on their traditional model. Make a console, sell the console, put great games on the console, people buy the console, profit. Like that's all still there for Sony. So if they start putting start putting the next God of War on, on the service PlayStation Plus day one, well, why should people go out and buy the retail version, or why should they pay the $60 version digital, or like, I'm just going to subscribe to the service. Now you're missing out on, mathematically, however much that is per release. And that's going to screw up their traditional model that they're still relying on.
And it still does well for them.
And yes, absolutely. And so this is why they're also not going to put their games on PC day and date, because it's going to do the same thing. We want people to play on the PlayStation 5 because this is the console we made. We want this console to eventually profit like the PlayStation 4 did. And if we put our stuff on PC, people are not going to buy it on the PlayStation 5. And they're banking on impatience, because people aren't going to wait to play it on PC, hopefully, in their eyes. So, no, I don't think this is going to happen because they're still relying on the traditional model. This is a supplement to what they're doing. Live services is a supplement to what they are doing. So, it was pretty clear to me that Jim Ryan does not want to go down this route because of this virtuous cycle, which I do not know why he calls it a virtuous cycle. That is such a weird...
I could see everything from Bungie ending up on this service. Just because of the multi-platform thing.
Possibly. But I still think they would make more money not doing it. Overall. Particularly for expansions. Maybe they could put it on after the initial release, maybe like a year later, they could put it on there. But for them and their service, I don't think it makes sense. Bungie did it with Beyond Light for Game Pass, but again, that's Microsoft. They can get a bigger bag from Microsoft than they could from Sony. They're already bought anyway. So Sony's trying to get as much money as possible from them. And I feel like it may be waiting a year where people are now in the part of, okay, we've gotten past the Witch Queen campaign, stuff like that. Now we're just basically in the live service element, season by season by season stuff. That is probably when it makes sense to put it on the subscription service where you don't have to buy the Witch Queen. You can go through the campaign. Now everybody's just spending on the stuff. And I know you are waiting to make a vaulted joke. I see it. I see that twinkle in your eye.
That's where it was going. That's where it was going. It'll be vaulted by the time it gets to PlayStation's pass.
Maybe not. All right, let's take 5 minutes to talk about this next topic, because I feel it is important for a lot of Nintendo fans, and we don't talk Nintendo enough.
No.
But Breath of the Wild 2 is delayed to spring 2023. I'm not going to say whether I predicted that or not. I actually did think at some point it was going to come out this year, but either way, it's unfortunate. It might be great. Who knows? The question is, do you expect gamers will get tired of all of these delays that are happening this year, last year? Is it weighing on people? David, what do you think?
I think we're already tired of it, but it's kind of one of those ways of life at this point. I hate it, but I understand it. It's you can't build a big game like these without encountering obstacles. This was before COVID. COVID definitely did things, but we were already encountering plenty of delays before that. Pretty sure Cyberpunk actually got delayed before COVID. So it's not like it's not like, yeah, did it make it worse? Sure, but at this point, it's understandable. I like the way Sony has been going about things, especially here recently. For the most part, they don't announce a time frame until they know that it's going to be in that time frame. So I know, obviously, I think COVID more affected like Horizon and God of War, because I think they would have come out perfectly on time had it not been for that. But when it comes to PlayStation, they have, for the most part, like God of War it was in 2018, I believe it was. They announced the date 3 months before it came out. So I think there are companies that are doing it right, and some companies like CD Projekt Red just should keep their mouth shut until they're a little bit closer.
Yes.
I think it really depends on the company, because some companies can show me a tease. I know to shut it off until I hear from them again. Other companies, it's like, oh, you're just going to drag this out again, aren't you?
I feel like for a long time, we were all making the cry, delay your game. Gosh, like, stop releasing these games and these unfinished ways that you guys are doing it. And now yes, because of COVID, but now we're getting the delays, and it's like, stop delaying your games. It's like, oh, what do you guys want?
Oh, man.
But I do think part of the problem is they're announcing games too early. Like everybody's announcing their game too early. Yes, COVID is having an effect on this, but it could be a situation where it feels like the game is almost done, and they could be right. And I do understand the marketing aspect and all these different things that they have to do in order to make sure their game, people know about it and are excited about it and all that stuff. But like you mentioned, God of War was announced 3 months before, was given a date 3 months before it was even coming out. Guess what? God of War did well. Like, do you think if Breath of the Wild came out or was announced for next week, you think people wouldn't buy it? No, of course they would buy it.
People would panic.
Yes, people would panic in excitement, but guess what? They would buy it. They wouldn't do that, obviously, because, legitimately people got to, save up money and whatnot. But if it were coming out, in 2 months, like people would buy it. Like, I don't know. I don't understand the need to put a date on something so early when anything could happen. Like, if COVID has taught us anything can happen. Yes, Starfield could get delayed. And that was given a date in January?
It was given a date back in June at E3.
Was that in June?
They dated it
November?
A year and a half out.
Did they date it, or did they give it
they dated
a window?
They dated it. 11/11/2022.
Dang, that was June?
In June of last year. So
I thought that was this year.
No, because I know how Todd Howard is, and I'm like, dude.
Yeah, so
it might not even be COVID. You may just not like the way a certain thing works.
Right? Yeah. Noah, I see you itching.
Yeah, I don't know, because I feel like you can also say on the opposite end of it, like, yeah, if you say you can announce it today and they'll buy it in a week. I think if you announce it today and you have to delay it, everyone's going to buy it next year, or the year after, whenever it comes out eventually. So I'm not sure that, like, they're announcing games too early. I just feel like you have to generate that hype at some point. I feel like some games are for sure announced too early. But I'm not sure that the games being announced early is the problem. I just think that the problem is, like, okay, for like Cyberpunk specifically, that was a problem with overpromising. And if it was delayed and it ended up being great, I don't think anyone would remember it as being like the game that was delayed and then it was really good. They would just be like, that game's amazing. And I don't think because as like a Destiny fan, the Witch Queen was a huge delay, but it was really well conveyed to the audience, like how long it would take. And they were like making sure that everyone knew when it was going to come out and how it would shift the content schedule for the rest of, Destiny 2's life cycle, really. And I think that when companies are really transparent about things and say, okay, this is why we need more time and this is what we're going to do and this is the schedule moving on, I think that's fine. And I think that as long as those companies are transparent, and I think as long as they don't open up pre-orders way before a game's set for release, I don't have a problem with it. I'm not like that tired of delays.
Max Payne 3.
Oh my gosh.
I think they're just a necessary part of the process, and when you're creating anything, you want to make sure you get it right. So you don't want to release an unfinished game. For the most part, it's usually why these delays happen, and obviously we all know that. But that's like my reason for not really ever getting tired of them. I think they're just part of it at this point.
Yeah, I empathize with delays. I just don't think they need to announce them. If you never announce the date, who knows when it's delayed, right? That's my logic. It's like you work on it for as long as you want. I never knew it was delayed. I never knew when it was going to come out.
Then you can do internal delays and it works fine. Like you can have a guess on, like, for instance, Ratchet and Clank. A lot of people expected Rift Apart was going to be in the first 3 months of the year, and it ended up getting pushed to June, but they had never really given it a date besides launch window, and technically 6 months is still within launch window.
Yep. All right. This one's quick too. E3 2022 is canceled. I feel like we got to hit all these topics before we get to apples to apples, because this is just too much. And we'll just make this one. We'll ask this question: could E3 be the same ever again? Or you could go this route. Does this year just completely wipe it out? Is it dead? Is E3 dead? Could it ever be the same again? Noah, kick us off.
Jeff Keighley is loading his pistol right now to.
Oh, it's loading. He's already fired it.
He's been trolling, man.
I mean, he's about to pull the trigger. I think he's about to pull the trigger so that we can call in the medical examiner and declare it officially dead. But I don't think it is like completely dead just yet. I think once we see what Jeff Keighley has this summer, it will be dead. It will 100% be dead. And not only that, also I just want to talk about like EA Play, EA's like live thing, EA Live, like Nintendo, and then like Ubisoft has their things now, and like at this point, there's so many different outlets for this kind of stuff. The PlayStation State of Plays, like there are so many different venues, including like Jeff Keighley stuff, Nintendo Treehouses, Nintendo Directs. Every single like thing is kind of overshadowed that, and E3 has kind of lost its prestige. And even then, you hear like horror stories about E3s, like where they weren't always like what they were drummed up to be, looking from the outside in. So, yeah, I think it's done.
I really hate the thought that it's done, but I'm probably 80-20 on that. I don't know how they recover from it. They're going to have to come up with one heck of a idea for 2023 if they're trying to put everything together. I do think the one thing that they might have over everybody else is they do have the ability they have the connections and the ability to put together an in-person event. Because Jeff Keighley, until he shows us, he has not put together anything besides the Game Awards that would be considered an in-person event, and and that's a lot smaller scale than what E3 is. Not to mention, he does have to, if he wants to be bigger, he has to convince some of these bigger publishers to be a part of it. Because E3's downfall is not necessarily that people weren't coming. E3's downfall is that the big three that it's literally named after left. Nintendo's not there, PlayStation's not there, and Xbox had even left the building at that point and was holding things over at the Microsoft, forget what it's called, over the Microsoft Theater. Nothing was being held in conjunction with the ESA. If Jeff can convince even if Jeff convinces like Ubisoft and some of these smaller people to come over and start doing something with him, it'll work. The biggest thing is he has to convince a lot. He's done a really great job with getting them to buy into a digital event. It's about, can he get them to buy into a community event, a in-person event? That's where he's going to have the fun of figuring all that. If anybody can, I believe it's him. But that's going to be a challenge considering he hasn't set up a humongous convention like that.
I am in complete agreement with the idea. The ESA's biggest advantage is that they can host an in-person event. That's the only thing they have going for them at this point. And they have to capitalize on that next year. They have to. Because, yes, we've had PAX. Yes, we've had all the other events. But we haven't had the huge summer event where we can meet all together and be together in this really hype, almost sports-like feeling event all together in what will be 3 years in 2023. So that's all they got. They just have to make it good enough. Like, I don't know why the ESA was upping the prices against, everybody and whatnot. I don't know what kind of financial struggles. I keep hearing they're incompetent. I don't know any of them personally. I don't really know the business dealings of the ESA. That is something I should take time to look into. But if they can find a way to convince Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft to come back, to do an event at a reasonable price, convince Activision, Actually, I don't even know if they want to convince Activision at this point right now, but convince Ubisoft, convince, all the other big players, Square Enix, everybody, to come back and do an in-person event. This will be amazing. Everybody's going to be excited. You guys get to talk together. All the stuff that happens on the periphery at night and all that stuff. It will be fantastic. Like that, the thought of it would be fantastic. I've been to E3 2013. That was absolutely dope. Like, I'm like, when can we have this again? Because Gamescom, like that's a whole bunch of people. Like, forget all that. Just make it the way E3 used to be in the early 2000s, late 90s. Like, that's E3. Hype, stage shows, the media doing their thing, IGN and games, all of them doing other thing. We're running around getting news and, all that stuff. It is tiring. It is exhausting. You stay up late. You probably only get 2 hours of sleep a night. But dang it, it is fun. And everybody is hyped. Like, nobody's really got a bad attitude on the internet about E3. Not that I remember. So, unless, something goes down that you didn't like, a game wasn't announced that you didn't like, or a game sucked, stuff like that. But, like, the overall vibe is just so much better. So that's the only way E3 is not going to die, is if the in-person event slaps. Not quite the way that Will Smith hit Chris Rock. All right, let's go
you had to work
our
that in, didn't you?
Apple segment. All right. I'm going to go first this time. I have been working on a guide, but also been doing a bunch of other stuff. So I've still been playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. So, David, go ahead and hit me with your 3 words.
I went with, is Tiny Tina really that tiny now? I went with Wonderific and Gungeons and Dragons.
All right. And Noah.
I said guns galore. It's like Skyrim with guns. And there are 2 types of people in this world, Aloy and Tiny Tina, and Ashley Birch is both of them.
All right.
Pretty sure Far Cry 3 was Skyrim with guns.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. You're right. The score so far, I forgot to mention those. David has 7, Noah has 9, and I have 8. So we've kind of closed the gap on Noah. So I am going to choose Dungeons and Dragons. I like that play a little bit. I do like that play a little bit. So I am in the end game of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I am solely focused on creating a build for one specific class, A, because that's the guide I am writing, but B, because I just want to try to get this class as powerful as possible and then move on to other classes. And the end game is more engaging than I thought it would be. I was worried it would die off pretty quickly. And because of the repetition, you're basically playing a, I guess, somewhat randomly generated levels with randomly generated enemies with 4 different types of runs you can do. They're called runs. Featured runs, normal run, extended run, and chaotic run, which is basically a way to increase the difficulty if you're able to survive. I thought it would be repetitive. To me, it is not. Mostly because I feel like I enjoy farming for stuff, and it is a great place to farm for different stuff. I feel like I am surprised often by what kind of loot I get out of each run, and that keeps it exciting. So I'm glad it's working better than I thought. I'm still disappointed there's no true Vault Hunter mode or anything like that. But you can go back, which I didn't know, but you can go back and farm other bosses that you did play through the campaign, and there is a way to make it tougher, but you just can't go back and just straight up do the campaign over again. So it's not as disappointing as I thought. I wish that kind of stuff was more up front, so that way, I could convey that earlier, even before review, even though I didn't review it, but still, it is better than I anticipated. Noah, what have you been playing?
I have still been playing Elden Ring. I'm working my way through it. I'm like about 80 hours in now, and I still don't have the end in sight. I don't even know how far I am in the game at this point. But it's been a blast.
All right. My 3 words for you are Tekken cameos. 19 minutes, which is the fastest speed somebody's beaten the game in. And Melina Spirit Ashes. I don't even know if I'm saying her name right, but it's a mod. Go ahead, David. You are muted.
I went with Sneak King 2.
That's good.
Game of Thrones Season 9.
That's pretty good.
And Give Me a Hug. I think Elden Ring players know what that means.
A lot of these are good. A lot of these are really good. This is tough. Because I saw the Tekken mods today, and that was super dope. I watched the speed run last night, the 18-minute 50-second one, or 47-second one. Amazing. But I have to go with Sneak King 2 because I really do.
That's so funny.
It was a close one, but the Raya Lucaria, like, people with their huge Burger King heads, they never get old. Like, looking at them and like just destroying them never gets old because they're like really weak. They have the magic, which is annoying. But once you get up there and you sneak through Raya Lucaria and you just backstab all of them, it feels so satisfying. And it does give you Burger King vibes, like 100%. So yeah, Sneak King 2 takes the cake on that.
Fair enough. All right. David, what have you been playing?
So, really super random one.
Yes.
I was going to put down something about Vanguard's rank play because I was playing that again a lot. But then I remembered I installed Call of Juarez Gunslinger on my Steam Deck. Why? Because it was randomly in my library from a free promotion a long time ago. It is verified on the Steam Deck, and it's only 4 gigs. It's a very easy game to install to test on your Steam Deck.
By the way, quick question.
Yeah.
How many gigs does your Steam Deck have?
I bought the smallest one, so it's not got the most space to it. It's 64 gigs, but I do have a 512 gig card coming in to expand it with tomorrow.
Got it. All right. My 3 words are not Weird West, Beautiful on the Run, and Deck over Switch, because Call of Juarez is also on the Switch. Noah, what are your 3 words?
My words are, wait, this isn't Red Dead. Rootin' Tootin' Cowboy Shootin' and Vintage Techland Goodness.
I've got to go for wait, this isn't Red Dead.
Yeah.
that kind of caught me off guard.
Oh man.
That's just good. Call of Juarez Gunslinger is actually pretty fun. I don't know if either of you have played it before. It's pretty much exactly how I'm going to go into Morbius tomorrow. I had absolutely no expectations playing this game. So it's just this fun little first person walk from one area to the next. Almost I don't want to say rail shooter because it's not a rail shooter at all, but there are certain aspects of it that feel kind of that way because the AI is pretty stupid. But it's fun to just run around and just there's not I don't feel tense playing it. It just feels like I can just kind of just let it. I can just do whatever, just shoot up some bad guys, and it's a whole lot of fun to try and get some really good shots on people. And I wanted to give it a try mainly because I wanted to see how a first-person shooter felt on the Steam Deck, and it actually feels pretty good. The 2 sticks actually work pretty well.
Does it feel better?
What?
I was going to say, does it feel better than like the Wii U gamepad? Sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
easily.
Oh, I bet.
Easily feels better. The ergonomics on the back feel great, and there's also 4 programmable buttons on the back, so you can kind of make those do what you want.
All right. Well, that's it for us. I think we went a little long today, but that's fine. Hopefully it was a fun conversation for y'all. We certainly had fun. This is the Part Timers Podcast. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you watching. And we will talk to you next week.